light bulb, and it's gonna emulate everything inside of it. Okay. So I have it selected. I'm gonna dump into a display layer, double click it, underscore sky dome light. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna just lock it for now. If I ever need to pull on it, I'm just gonna grab it from the outliner, because I hate grabbing it by accident. Anyway, so I'm gonna show one render at a time. I'm gonna just do this. Right? Don't mind this. When you see this, right? This is called camera clipping. I'm using the perspective camera. Select the camera. Go to the attribute editor. I have the focal length to 90 as well as for rendering. Far clip plane right now set to 10,000. I'm gonna set to 100,000, and this will come more into. It'll prevent the clipping. There, see, 10,000. Again, that's under far clip plane. You can come back in. Press F to frame it like that. Okay, so I dumped in the light. I'm gonna grab all the models, press 3 for smooth preview. Don't mind this either, it's just a stupid viewport. I'm gonna do an incremental save. And then what I'm gonna do next, I need to show what's looking like. So I'm gonna pull up the render view, which is this render view, clapper with the eyeball, truncate it down a bit like that. First thing I want to do is set this to render cam. If you do not see the render cam, right, it's a glitch. You have to go to an initial render, and then you can pause it by pressing the escape button. Then it should show up if you do not end up seeing it. Like I said, it is a glitch. Change it to render cam. Right now it's showing it, it's behaving properly, so it's fine. Then I'm gonna press this play button. You always want to do incremental saves. Right. You'll notice this weird little banding going on. That's either if I click on the hyper shade, the cue ball looking thing, the teal colored. Okay, I have 0 specular, so it's not. I thought this weird little artifacts was the specular shading, but it's not. This shouldn't be there. Why is that there? Alright, 1 second. Alright, so one of the first things you want to do is to make sure you grab everything, right? For example, meaning anything that's made out of polygons, right? All that selected, including the wall. And even though it is assigned to the shader, right? So I can zoom in, make this bigger by holding Alt and right mouse to kind of make it bigger. Alt and right mouse, you just pull on it. Anyway, it should be this shader, standard surface, not Lambert, standard surface. I'm going to right click on it, assign. Even though it is, it's just a good habit to do so. If for whatever the hell reason you have additional shaders going on, right, because of the import process or whatever, you go to File, Edit, Delete Unused Nodes. Delete Unused Nodes. regarding the hypershade, which is this cue ball looking thing that's teal colored, right? So again, this here is your standard surface, right? So this little panel, or this large panel here, is kind of like where you go into work and design your shaders. This is a shader ball, standard surface. Right now my shader ball, the default, I had dropped the base color, right? Down to about 50%, so it's not too bright. And then I dropped the specular. Let me close all this. So basically with lighting and rendering, there's multiple things that come into play all at the same time that you have to juggle and to work with, so they all work together well. You know, there's your lighting setup with your lights, then there's your shaders, those two together. Then also the render settings, which I'm gonna also talk about. All this stuff is documented in the learning objectives Word docs with pictures and step-by-step guide. Anyway, so one of the first things you want to do is there's this thing called specular. Specular is just basically the shininess. You want this thing is called weight. It's just a fancy word for how strong do you want the shininess. You know, do you want zero shininess, which is 0.0, or do you want full glass like reflectivity, which is at 1? The value is from 0 to 1. For now, drop yours down to 0. You want no specular. No specular. The base color, I think the default is like what? 0.75 or something? I'm gonna check that. Alright, so I opened up a brand new scene, right? By default, the base, right, that's the, you know, at the baseline, the base is just the color of it. So, you know, the default value when you click on it is at 0.4. Hue saturation value 0, 0, and 0.4. And then the specular, right, for this is the weight is at 1. Roughness, I'm going to talk about it later. Just that means how fuzzy or how crisp and accurate, you know, with no imperfections does your reflections have. That's what the roughness is, which I'm also going to talk about and show. Right, but like I said, you drop the weight down to 0, and default is at 0.4. So you know what? I'm gonna change this because it's close but not close. I'm gonna change this to 0.4. You'll see this update. Okay. Right now, the reason why this thing is updating is because this right here that looks like a Wi-Fi signal. This is your interactive rendering. That whatever you do in here, changing the scene, the renderer will update, which is super. It can be super useful, but after multiple times of rendering, it glitches out, and then it's not accurate anymore, and you will lose hours because, you know, you're wondering why is nothing changing. It's because of the fact that it's glitchy. Anyway, so this is the Arnold renderer. Arnold is a standalone proprietary lighting and rendering system, right? So it's a render engine and lighting rendering system. It's different from Maya, right? They're initially they were a separate company. I think Maya bought them out or something, but Arnold is used in a lot of large productions, blah blah blah, movies, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So that's what Arnold is. Anyway, so I have this. I'm gonna save a snapshot. So this right here, store snapshot. There it is. If you do not see this, right, you see these dotted lines, dot, 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 dot. Click on it, drag it. That's how you see it. But when you have it selected, make sure to deselect it afterwards. Always make sure to deselect it. In older versions of Maya, if you don't have it deselected, it will just stay like this even though you do a fresh render. I think now 2025, even though you have it deselected, it will do a re-render. I think. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, but whatever. Anyway, render cam shape. I have this stupid annoying issue back here, which I'm going to talk about how to fix it. So when you see things like this, and you know that through troubleshooting, right, that it's not the shader, because the specular shininess, it can look something like this, cause weird looking artifacts. But I know for a fact that there's zero specular, zero shininess, so it ain't that. It ain't the shader ball that's causing this stupid looking issue. So what it is that it's the mesh. I select the mesh, right? And you'll see it here. It's gonna update. See this? This here is the 1-to-1. Don't mess around with this other stuff. Just leave it alone. I select the mesh. I go to the attribute editor for the mesh. I go to smooth mesh. Then there's subdivision levels. Set this to 3 and you'll see what happens. What that does is that the smooth preview that does, it makes it even more smooth. See, you clear that artifacting out. So before, bullshit looking thing, after, looks normal, right? So again, that's the importance of thumbnails. Before, uncheck it, after. I like this, so I'm gonna just save it there. Before, after, before, after. Right. And you notice how there's no Wi-Fi signal looking icon. Uncheck it. You see it there. The hotkey to do force a render is Control U. I recommend just doing a habit of Control U. So I'm going to turn this off. Reason why is that, like I said, after 10 different renders or so, it will glitch out and it's not going to be accurate. So I'm not going to even deal with that. I'm just going to turn it off. This is good if you want to stage your camera. That. And also when designing complex shaders. But for now, I don't need it. I'm going to move this out of the way. I unchecked it. Alright, so here we are. Right. Camera's acting goofy, so I'm going to select anything out here. Or select... Oh, that's pissing me off. Let's check this reference. Grab one of these, press F to frame onto it. It's going to lock onto it. This is starting to piss me off. Press H, hide it. Alright. So now I'm gonna show the render settings, clapper with the gearbox. Alright, first thing I want to show is ray depth. Ray depth right here, right? Arnold renderer, right? We'll talk about sampling later. Ray depth. So since Arnold simulates real world lighting, right? Lighting properties, physically accurate, right? I can increase how many times the lights that come from this dome, how many times when that light rays hit the subject, right? Right now it's only gonna hit once. But in real world, lights bounce around. So I'm gonna change this to 2. Diffuse is just how many times the light, I think the light color will bounce. This is how many times the shininess, reflectivity will bounce. So 2 and 2. I may not have the terminology exactly correct, but that's like kind of like the gist of it. 2 and 2. So it's gonna bounce twice for the color, diffuse, twice for the specular. Let's see what it does. I'm gonna do Control U. I turn this off, like I said, I don't trust it anymore. Control U. Now forces a render and it'll be accurate no matter what. And the glitch, I don't have to deal with any glitches. So it looks like nothing happened, right? I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna uncheck it. See, before, after, before, after, before, after. It's a big deal, right? So that is 2 light bounces. Again, this is not anything similar. It's nothing like, you know, like Photoshop where you just apply a curves and you jack up the curves. It's nothing like that. It's not like an exposure. It is literally light bouncing around twice. The diffuse light bounce and the specular light bounce. So that's twice. I'm gonna save this snapshot. Initial render, correcting the mesh, increasing the light bounce to 2 and 2. Let's say I increase my ray depth to 3 and 3, right? So now it's gonna be 3 times it's gonna bounce. I'm gonna do Control U for a render. So before, I'm gonna uncheck it, after, before, after, zoom in, before, after. I'm gonna save a snapshot so you can see the progress. Alright. Other thing too I mentioned in class is that these things, not only do they help to just provide more secondary illumination or ambient illumination, it dramatically affects the shaders. So for example, if this God tier thingamajig, if this is made out of something translucent like water or glass or metals, right? Especially for glass like material that has that you can see through, right? They call it transmission, right? And that it also, if it's like has refractive properties like glass, like how light penetrates the glass material and then it refracts, right? This plays a massive role. You cannot get glass-like materials without increasing these. Anyways, if I jack it up to 4 and 4, let's do another render. Control U. And by then, it's super subtle here, right? Yeah, see, barely noticeable. Super barely noticeable. Down here is the render time, 2 seconds. This is the composition size. This tells you what's rendering. It's a GPU rendering. This is the camera, right? This is the sampling, meaning the quality, how crisp the renders are. That's basically here under sampling. Camera AA meaning anti-alias. Camera meaning the camera that's rendering is anti-alias, meaning the jaggedy lines, right? Right now 3 is a baseline. I'm not gonna mess with this for now. The more you crank it up, right, it gets crisper, cleaner, and crisper and just super nice and sharp. But we don't need to we don't need to mess with this, because if you jack this up, right, the render times will grow exponentially. The maximum I recommend for now is like between 8 or 10. Yeah, if you have really complicated scenes and you want things to be perfect, maybe kind of crazy, but maybe 15 at the most, but that will increase render times too much, maybe, perhaps. Anyway, so This here, this means how much of the GPU, VRAM, video RAM, VRAM is being used. Right now it's only 6,500 megabytes or 6 gigs, I think. Yeah, alright, so I have it 4 and 4. If you have this to 4 and 4, for the most part, you get the shader look for glass and more complicated materials. 4 and 4. Transmission is 8, right? This and this should equal to this. Transmission meaning how many times will the light bounce around inside? It'll bounce around 8 times. And this equals to this. If you really want to get have no holding back on anything, you can go 5 and 5 and 10, right? But typically for now, 4 and 4 and 8. All right. Also, just a reminder, make sure you have this on. If you do not see this, you choose one of these, probably optics, I'm pretty sure, or this, probably optics from what I remember. All right, so that's what, 48 minutes. So we did that. Reason why you don't want any colors right now is colors, and also the reason why you don't want any shininess is that it will mess with you. It just adds an extra variable to try to deal with and troubleshoot. But if it's just a matte gray shader, then you narrow down any potential technical issues with the lighting rendering. So this is how you kind of work from the bottom up in a safe manner, logical step-by-step manner. Blah blah blah. So let me just move this out of the way. I'm gonna add a Arnold area light. Arnold lights area light. Right, you'll be using Arnold lights for the most part for this project. Do not go under create lights. Do not use these. These are Maya's old school legacy lights, and they're lights. Don't use this. Later on you can probably use like directional light and sometimes the spotlight, but for the most part don't mess with this. Don't complicate things. Just go Arnold lights area light. Press F to frame into it. Here's a light. Press R. We'll scale it big so you can see it. Press W. Pull it back. Alright, so here's some clear rules. This here, right, this is your aim. This tells you where it is aiming, right? If you have it like this, it means the light is going this way but not showing anything this way. Right? Always know where it is aiming. It's critical. The bigger you scale it, right, it's not just a visual representation. The bigger you scale it means it's going to be give a soft diffuse lighting, like a light box in studio lighting. I'm going to pause it for a bit. Alright, so I had paused the video for a moment. This here, right, I just googled it. For example, things like this, studio lighting. This light box, right, is equivalent to this. Then you have things like this. You see these verticals, lighting. And also they have things like this intentionally because of the reflections that will be cast or emanating from the subject matter. If you have something shiny like a car, right, and you want to have a nice white streak, right, then you have things like this, this. See, studio lighting. here, here's your camera.